Have something on your heart you want to share with us, maybe, or?
What is the mic?
Yeah. Yes.
People that are in dialysis.
Yes.
How you step down from, or how you walk him to?
The question was people that are on dialysis, and the very first question that I have after going through their cases and any lab work that I have on them and stuff, how long have they been on dialysis, and are they still able to urinate on their own?
How about if they're not able?
If they're not able to urinate on their own, this is going to take quite a bit of time. It also depends on the length of time of dialysis. Basically, dialysis, you're just stripping the blood of a lot of things and you're putting it back in, and in one essence, you're actually starving their cells. People that die of dialysis don't usually die of the actual process of dialysis, they die of starvation from the actual, because you're stripping those nutrients and you're stripping a lot of that.
So those people have to be on like 100% of fruits, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And you hit all the systems like...
we may take a break every once in a while and we may build for a little bit, but short bursts. If they start losing too much weight, remember we do need to be cognizant of that. Same with cancer. I mean, you need to go hard with cancer, but if they start, I mean, if you've got a man that's down to 105 pounds, we're going to take some breaks and we're going to build with fruit, but we're still going to build. We're going to take a moment to build. I know we say all the time that you're going to lose weight, but you...
Build means stopping the herbs and just doing fruits, or what do you mean about building?
The building, I build. I've got people to gain 10 pounds, 12 pounds, 20 pounds.
That's so low. What do you stop the herbs and let them build?
No, we still do the herbs. We just tweak the diet a little bit.
Okay, so pouring on the greens, you mean?
No, we do not do greens. We do things like dates and bananas, and we do smoothies, and we do superfoods and things like that for a week or two.
Okay.
And then we'll detox for another week or two, and then we'll build for a little while. Kind of go back and forth on that.
Tell them about the sodium, because fruits and vegetables contain sodium and other elements, so they are scared they won't do any raw food.
Can you maybe repeat the question?
The question was, I'm assuming you're talking about cancer?
No, dialysis.
Oh, dialysis.
Dialysis, yes.
With when you're on dialysis, they're very careful with the phosphorus, the magnesium, the sodium,
Exactly.
that kind of thing. I try and help them find fruits and vegetables that are lower in those things, but I tell them not to worry about it as much as what the doctors are worried about it, because the body is going to adjust to that. Remember, they're used to pulling things out, and when you eat fruits, the body knows what to do with the fruits. It knows what to do with those things. It knows how to utilize them. It knows how much of the magnesium needs to pair with how much of, another element. That's why when you look at fruits and vegetables, their balance in all of those things are perfect. Everybody ever wonder why there's seasons? It's because the different fruits have different amounts of vitamins and minerals and amino acids in them and stuff, and you go through those, and where you maybe didn't need as much here, this season brings a fruit that has more. So
would you stay away from like melons, things that have a lot of liquids, so that they don't...
on dialysis,
Yeah.
that's a fine balance. I would have them probably, if I'm going to do melons, if they want to do melons, I would have them start out on either like honeydew or cantaloupe that's not quite the water content that the watermelon is. Okay. Anything else? Maybe this will be short.
Yeah, I have a question about negative emotion. I know someone who died from, I have some really negative emotion, and I say to myself, maybe the raw diet and herbs, the person will be able to heal her cancer, but also her negative emotion. So I don't know if that negative emotion are more important, or if the diet can heal also the two one. I don't know.
Well, negative emotion and disease go hand in hand. Negative emotion is an acidic condition. I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I am feelings of rejection, those kind of things.
But maybe she can be correct that with raw diet.
Absolutely, but she's got a road because the fruit is going to cause her to start releasing some of those. So in some aspects, you want to get them grounded a little bit. You want to get them to the point where they understand the emotional detoxing that they're going to go through. You're never going to win that game with everyone. And I'll just give you a couple of examples, and then I'll follow it up with a good one. Working with a woman that is schizophrenic, was on a lot of drugs for that. One day, you never knew who you were going to be talking to. She'd either love you to pieces or she would be screaming at you. And just trying to work with her through that. She didn't make it. She was found, I'm sorry, some of these are kind of tough. They think she fell off a cliff. So we know where she was, we know what she was dealing with, and we know that that's probably not an accidental fall. Can't really say that. I worked with a gentleman, this guy stole my heart. He was in China and MS, and we worked together, and he was bedridden when we got him, and he had started getting out of bed. He was starting to walk, sit up in the wheelchair, talk a lot plainer. He sent us a video of being able to lift weights and pull himself up into a sitting position. And he started dealing with a lot of emotional stuff. And so we talked about it, and he's like, I think I just need a little bit of a break. And so he still stayed on fruits and vegetables, but then he started getting into the rice and some of the other stuff. And going downhill, lost all of his ability to move again, ended up back in the bed. And he called me one day and he said, I know I need to get back, but I don't know if I can. And we tried. He craved his avocados, he craved his salads. And finally started working with him. He started saying, okay, I can do this, I can do this. And I told him I knew I don't like to say I knew I was losing him, because that means that I know that he can't make it, and people can shock you. So I don't really want to say that, but I felt at the time that we were fighting kind of a losing battle. And I told him, I said, Raj, I wish I could walk in that room right now and give you a hug. And this is what got me. He said, you've already walked into my heart. What are walls?
That's amazing.
And I lost it. About 10 days later, he called, Skyped, his sister did, and he tried telling me something. And I knew what he was trying to tell me. I knew he was trying to tell me it's going to be okay. And Sunday, they started texting, and they lost him Sunday night.
Wow.
Your emotions, guys, that's what I was trying to tell you the other day. Be prepared for them. Acknowledge that they are not real. They may be what you're feeling, but they aren't necessarily real. I'm working with a guy right now, completely suicidal, doesn't even know if he's gonna make it till the weekend. And I'm trying to work with him to understand that these feelings are things that have to come out, that you have to get rid of. It's affecting your health, but it doesn't mean they're real. Feelings of I keep hitting that, I'm sorry. Feelings of I am completely unworthy. That is a lie straight from hell if you want to believe in hell, but everyone is worthy. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone has a plan. Everyone has something to do, someone to inspire, someone to help. And you need to call on those things, because when you're feeling those things, when you're feeling those emotions, you have to acknowledge the lie within them. When I was doing counseling, we called it a theme lie. And I was in a pretty bad place when I was a little girl. And I had the theme lie, come to me that I was not special. And my entire life, until I got free of that, I was fighting and fighting and fighting to be special to someone. And it's a theme lie. Once I acknowledge that, the woman who doesn't think she's lovable, that's a lie in and of itself as well. So you have to acknowledge those emotions, or they will and can hinder you from your journey. And if you're already down enough, they can take you out. Let's redeem this for a moment. 3 years ago, I was working with a woman on a lot of meds for depression, alcoholic tendencies, attempted suicide many times, and started working with her. And we, for months, struggled back and forth, 3 o'clock in the morning phone calls, not knowing if she's going to make it, not feeling like she should make it. And I was able, because she was in Colorado, to put her in touch with somebody. And she kept working with us, herbs, diet, but she started working with someone emotionally, and she is doing absolutely phenomenal today. She's off all but I think one sleeping medication. So just look at the stories. Don't let things pull you away from what you know. So, yes.
Today, when we were looking at the eye of the young man,
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, the student, one of the students.
Oh, the eye,
this
yeah,
afternoon,
yeah.
You were looking at his eye, and you asked him, "Are you a perfectionist?" So my question is, why did you ask that? I mean, do you think perfectionist is a good or a bad thing?
I'm nosy. No. When I was talking about the brain flare, there is an area in the eye called inherent mental. And it is about conflict, internal conflict. Most people who are OCD, most people who are perfectionists, have an issue with trust. Something happened in their life. They no longer trust that they have to be in control. So they're more a perfectionist. They want it perfect. They want that control. They want to know that they can do that properly. And that internal conflict causes constant friction, which causes a drain on the adrenal. And so at some point, I've had people that, I'll just give you a personal story. I was going through, this is before I even started the program, but I was going through some very real emotional stuff, struggles, marriage stuff, kid stuff, and I don't know, out of the blue, I just started counting. Fill a glass of water, count to 10. That's when the glass would be full. Train goes by, how many trains would I count before that train was passed? And it was because I didn't want to stop and allow myself to think. I didn't want to feel those emotions. I didn't want to dig deep. And so OCD. And started working with our protocol and stuff and pulling myself out of that. But that inherent mental is a clue to me that if they get stuck and they come back to me and say, nothing's changing, now it's time to start working on the emotional.
How long later do you start, would they come back, 3 months?
I usually have people come back about every 8 weeks until they get an idea, they've taken more responsibility for where they're at, they kind of understand the protocols and stuff. Once if they come back and it's been 3, 4, 5 months and they're sitting there going, nothing's changed, nothing's changed, nothing's changed, then we start digging a little bit deeper into that. Obviously, I am not, through this, what I'm doing right now, I am a counselor, but I am not a emotional counselor. I've done that. I've got that in some of my background, but that's not my role right now. So we do talk about certain things, and I do go certain depths into that with them, but there are just things that, as doing this, you can't be all things to all people. You may help them, you may lead them to somebody else, or make a recommendation for them or just talk to them about where they're at emotionally, but you can't go too deep with someone into that. So, in the role that we're in right now anyway.
I have a question. Have you worked with people that have panic attacks? I mean, I know, I understand, but I'd just love to hear a little bit of extra about it or things that you've done, especially in the emotional realm too. Just a lot of anxiety. I know the flowers and things are beneficial, but I would just love to hear any experience or anything.
Okay. Usually I work with them on deep breathing techniques. The question was about those who have panic attacks. And I do. I utilize the flower essences and things like that, but the most important thing that I do is work with them on their adrenals. And I don't usually just, I'll do a month or two of the adrenal glandular, but I like getting to the herbal adrenals as fast as I can, at least, because I like to pair it with things like astragalus and ashwagandha and some of those herbs that are just really good for the the adrenals, and that kind of thing. There's just some amazing herbs out there that can help with anxiety and neurological and that kind of thing. But, and this is just from my personal experience, the biggest thing is for them to be able to meditate, pray, journal. Journal is one of the biggest things that I use. I encourage people to journal a lot because they can put their thoughts for that day. I am angry. I am pissed off. I am hurt. Why? I don't understand why. And they're writing this down. First of all, writing is very therapeutic. Second of all, you can call him God, you can call him the universe, you can call him your creator, you can, whatever you want to name you want to put to it. He invariably answers that. I'm not saying that we always get the answers that we're looking for that way, but I don't know how many times. I remember after I lost my son, I journaled, and I just would have pages where you could see it in my writing, just rage and pain and hurt. And I asked God, why? Why is there death? Why death in children and that kind of thing? And I didn't get an answer that day. I didn't get an answer the next day. I didn't even get an answer the next week. But the following week, I'm writing and I'm writing and I'm writing, and all of a sudden it just, this words just hit the page, and obviously it wasn't me. I see death differently than you. And he does. To him, this is a blink in time. We're just learning some things. We're just, like Robert says, we're playing. Some people are so hurt that they can't get to the play, but it's there. And that was such a freeing day for me, because in my heart I felt like Brandon's okay. He's not here, but he's okay. And that was such a freeing moment for me. It's not like I let it go. I don't think you can ever let something like that go. But my husband and I went through a period of some pretty heavy marital stress because of the loss of our child, and he never grieved. I did. He never did. And we moved down here to Florida, and I set up my massage table in our house one time because he was hurting, and I put him on the table and I'm massaging him, and I put this music on, and if anyone has ever lost a loved one, this song will tear you up. Who you'd be today. And it's about someone who was lost, and what would your, how many children would you have? What would their names be? And I had my hand on him and I felt him shaking. And I knew that he was at that moment where he was. And for the next 5 months, I would catch him in the bedroom. I would catch him in the living room. I'd catch him in the kitchen at the counter, listening to that song and weeping. That was just last year. Brandon would have been 24 years this year. So let me tell you, you can lock things in, and it can be to your detriment, or it can be your body knows when it needs to be released. Maybe he wasn't ready for those 24 years. That wasn't my call. All I knew was that I could be there for him now. And so when you're going through detox and your body says, I need to let this out, there's a reason for it. And you've really got to let it out for your sake.
To touch on that, so like, how do you explain to people, because, you know, like how you were right, and like, he sees death different, you know, that's how I kind of feel about death. Like, my gram passed away in February, and it didn't hit me emotionally. Like, I understood, like, you know, she was suffering, and, you know, she's okay now. But like, a lot of the family members, like, especially my mom, I can see her really fighting it, and it's really hard to talk to her with it about it, because I guess I'm more easygoing, or like what you said, to see. So like, how can you explain that to someone that it's okay, like it's okay to move on, or you know, a lot of people see death and there's a lot of grievance, you know, and I see it as, look at this life they were able to celebrate, you know, all the lives they touched. Like, if it wasn't for my gram, obviously I wouldn't be here, you know, all that stuff. So it's, how do you explain it to people, or to help them understand, so that way maybe they can find the path to help them get there, I guess, a little easier than what they're going through?
Well, the first thing is you're very gentle with them.
Marcie, maybe you can repeat a little bit.
Oh, how do you explain the death of a loved one to somebody who's in such grief? Would that be?
Well, like, because, you know, like how I see death different. You know, I don't really see it as such a bad thing. Or like,
Can you speak up?
oh,
Yeah,
I don't see death as such a, you know, like how you said, I see it different, like, than some other people. And, you know, like my mom with my gram, she's taking it really hard, and so I see that, and I try to tell her, like, it's okay, you know, I see what you're going through, you know, it's like, it's okay to let go, because you got to think about, she was 90 years old, so she had such a great, so I see the great life she had, and she was suffering, you know, she was getting dementia and Alzheimer's, so she was starting, and that really took a toll on my family and all this history, brother. So it's, I guess I see it, you know, I see death different. And it's to explain to people to be able to get past that, you know, because they'll hold on to, I can see people hold on to death so hard, and it's, I want to help, you know, I like to help the emotional aspect of people, you know, like it's okay, or like learn to celebrate what they've become and what they were able to accomplish, all that stuff.
Right.
So like, how do you?
Everybody's going to explain that differently. I would really call on the Spirit in that moment to help you with those words. The first thing that you've got to do is you've got to be very gentle with them. They're wounded, they're hurting. They're feeling a loss that they don't know that they'll ever be able to fill. For me, being a Christian, I'm just very real about what I am. Death is just a doorway. It really is.
Yeah.
And you're going from one door to the other. I know that I had a lady that she had lost her daughter 21 years ago and was in terrible pain. And I just had her close her eyes. And I just asked God to give her an image of her daughter today. And pretty soon she started smiling, and then she started laughing. And I said, "What are you seeing?" And she said, she's pure joy. And I said, "Well, what does that mean to you?" And she goes, "It means that no matter how bad I want to hold her again, I would never pull her away from that."
Wow.
That was as simple as it is. You know, sometimes we're afraid of the word God. We're afraid of Creator. We like to say universe because putting it into the one who created us scares us. He doesn't fit in anybody's box. He can ask us to do strange things, things that may even terrify us. You know, when I moved down here, I told those that I was here before it was supposed to be for a year, and it wasn't until I was down here and already committed and already moved that God said, "No, it's more than that." He knew I wouldn't be able to handle that. He knew I would probably say no, but he had a plan. And so get to know, God is not about religion. I'm Christian, somebody else is something else, God isn't about religion. He's about relationship. Get to know who that relationship is for you. Connect with him. Ask him questions. He's always talking to us. We just have so much chatter going on up in here. He can talk to you through a bird. He can talk to you through a bumper sticker. I mean, God can talk to you. He talked to my husband through a song and let him know it's time to release these things. He can talk to you through anything. And he created you. He knows where the pain's at, physically, emotionally, spiritually. He knows where our depression is. He knows where our discouragement is. He knows where we may not feel like we're meeting expectations. He knows where when I feel like I'm not good enough to be in the seat that I'm at, or a mother or a wife. And he knows how to speak to us to make that okay. And you just have to learn to embrace it. Amen. So how you speak to people about that, one may be as far different as the other, because he's going to give you the words to speak to them that will touch their heart. When I get images and pictures and these analogies that I come up with, they're not from me. There are half the time I'm sitting back in my chair going, whoa. And it's because he's given them, and he's given them for that person. Some of you are going to hear some double stories, but I had a psychic in my office. It's been about a year and a half ago. She goes, why did you decorate your office this way? And it's done in an African safari theme. I've got zebras and tigers and all kinds of stuff. And I said, well, I've always had a heart for Africa, and I love animals. And she goes, I've been dreaming of every one of these animals for 2 weeks. She goes, there's just one problem. And I said, what's that? She said, in my dream, there was always a peacock. And I sat where I was, but I reached over around my screen, and 2 days before, my husband had given me 2 peacock feathers. Now, do you think God used that moment to let her know it's okay to talk to me? Like I said, he speaks in many ways. So.
Good.
Marcie, someone with mental health issues, and they're going through the standard system, and they want to go to the herbs.
Can you talk just a little louder?
For mental health issues, someone who wants to go and do it through the fruits and the berries and the herbs and the flower essence, in between, so you see them in 8 weeks, what, in your experience with people that you've had, where do they go for help in between in those moments if they're not on the medication? Like Dr. Morse today or yesterday, we were talking to him, and he's like, I don't have them take any medication, the medication. So
I'm going to clear something up about Robert right now. Robert talks in the moment, and sometimes what he says is a little bit different than what he would actually, because he's usually 5 sentences ahead of himself. So understand one thing, at the office, if it's a mental health issue, we do not tell them to go off their medicine immediately. We get them into the program. If they've got mental health issues, I don't wait 8 weeks to see them. I have them seeing me either every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks until I know what's going on with them.
What about, he did say they needed to consult with the doctor to help them.
Right. Once we get to a point where we understand how they're going to respond to that detox, we start talking to them about working with their doctor to titrate. Never cold turkey, titrate off of certain things.
Are they, when you have a client that has issues, so they can get to you sooner, so like 2 weeks or?
I keep my Fridays open for emergencies. They usually fill up pretty fast.
2 weeks.
A lot of your clients, or not a lot of, how many of them have, you said, an emotional counselor? Like, is that something that you would?
I either will try and help put them in touch with somebody, or I'll help them look for resources that they may be able to find somebody to work with them through that. But I at least want that resource to understand, so that they don't spend the majority of their counseling session arguing because of the foods they're eating and the herbs they're taking. So I at least want to try and find someone who will understand. That's not always a possibility.
Seem
And we get, and not to detract from that, but at the office, we get emails constantly. Please read this article and give me feedback. Please watch this video. And it's just impossible to do. And we try and let people know as much as possible. Do your own research. And if you think that this is something that needs to be spread to the masses, send it to us. We'll start getting the word out. But we can't, I mean, it's hard for us with what we have coming into the office to be able to sit down and watch an hour video that somebody is sending us so that they can decide if they should take B12 in this form or not. That kind of thing.
You have the most experience in there with mental health issues?
I just have more of a passion for it. So I don't want to say I've got the most experience, but I love working with it.
How far out are you from people?
For initial consults, I'm into December, I think. Trust me, for those of you that want to become a practitioner, it's not going to take you long to get the word out once you start working with people and they start seeing the success and how much they feel and that kind of thing. Word of mouth will spread, and it's not going to take you long.
And we're in the database now, right? After we finish the test for level 2?
I think so.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
There's a database?
Everybody's starting to panic. Where's the moonshine yarrow? Do you? Enough to go around? I need it. 1 second.
Back to the dialysis and the kidneys.
Yes.
Take them out of the dialysis, or that's a slow.
I want to get them, if I can, off dialysis as soon as possible. Back to the question of those who are on dialysis. So I start working with them, we start watching blood, we start trying to get those kidneys either moving or filtering again as far as a little bit of dribbling, that kind of thing. If I can get any urine out of them whatsoever, I'll have them go instead of 3 or 4 days to dialysis. Let's back this off to like 2.5 and see how you respond. If you have to go back up to that 3rd day for a while, we do it. If you can start going, if you do fine on every 2 days, great. Let's keep going with those herbs. Let's keep going, keep going, keep going. Let's try 1 day now. And let's see how you do. And just kind of keep working them. I have had mixed success with the dialysis because people tend to get scared. Remember what the doctors are telling them. Yeah. You don't do this, you die. Yeah. And so they get scared. I've had people that are still urinating, still doing great, get scared into starting dialysis. And within 3-4 months of being on dialysis, they can no longer urinate. They just took what we could have done in 6 months to probably more like 1.5 to 2 years.
So that's how long people on dialysis takes almost.
Remember, every story is different.
But I mean, that would be like.
I was just using an example.
So that amount of time? I mean, to consider like.
If they're willing to work with you and they're just getting started on dialysis and they're still urinating, within 6 months you should be able to help them get to filtering and rebuild some of those kidneys. Remember, every day that you win and every day that you get a little more filtration and every day that you gain them so that they have another day that they can rebuild something or start to rebuild something is a day you're winning. That's a victory. Whether that takes them another 3 months, whether it takes them another 9 months, you've just given them another day to fight. When you're looking at, imagine someone laying on this table, and this has like 6 legs, I think it is. Imagine every one of those pillars representing something. This one's genetics, this one's emotions, that one's nutrition, that one over there is attitude. But yet the legs are all cut at different lengths. They're going to be out of balance. And when you're out of balance, that's not homeostasis. That is an acidity issue within the body. And you need to get those things balanced. You may have great genetics, but you may have a poor attitude. You may have horrible genetics, but you've ate fairly well your whole life and you got a good attitude. Sometimes this one's going to go quicker than another. You can never know one person is the same. When somebody asks me, oh, how long is this going to take me? I have them look on there and say, well, how balanced are you? that's not what's coming out of my mouth, but that's what's going to tell you how long this is going to take you. Yes.
This pertains to animals. I know Dr. Morse with the Dr. Morse with the protocols. You know, he jumps around with the kidneys and the lymph, and well, I guess specifically for cats, because I have my cat on the glycerin, and she'll, you know, she foams a lot with the alcohol. But with you, with the cats and the dogs, do you jump around and move those kidneys and lymph, or do you just take more a break? I'll give my cat a break, but she's mainly on the same things, maybe taking a couple things away, but not really changing the level of the kidney or lymph because I keep it on the glycerin.
Yeah, it depends on the situation. If I've got a tumor.
Repeat the question for the.
Oh, okay. About animals and cats, and if you play around with the kidney and the lymph formulas and that kind of thing, or if you just keep them on it solid, maybe take a break. It really depends, just like on a human, just on their situation. If I've got a cat or a dog with a big tumor on the neck, I'm going after it. We're not going to do much breaking, and we're going to really work with diet. The only shifting I'm going to do is I may go from a kidney 2 to a kidney 4, kidney 1 to a 3, and move the lymphatics around, but that's about it. Parasite M and Parasite G, I'm going to take them through that. Parasite M, I'm going to leave them on it constantly until we've broken through in some areas. The G, I'm probably going to take them through, because it is an animal and they are outdoors, I'm going to probably take them through that G maybe once every 6-8 weeks.
Okay.
Just in a bottle. If it's a small dog, that bottle is going to last you a long time. So if after 2 weeks you don't see anything, take a break. Doesn't mean they're not in there. But remember, parasites like to burrow, and they like to dig deep, and they like dark, warm, mean, nasty places. So.
With a history of breast cancer and lymph nodes are swollen, the ear hurts, and you're seeing sparks on the eye, and you want to detox some more, do you continue on the fruits if your ear is starting to really hurt? You know, is it getting backed up, or you just keep moving?
Right. When you say backed up, are you feeling just a pressure, or is it swelling?
Pressure.
Okay. I'm not too worried about a pressure. If there was swelling in that area, we would slow down. If I was seeing movement in that area, well, it goes down, but it gets big. It goes down, but it gets big. I'm going to go on the lighter lymphatics, but I'm still going to use the fruits to do a lot of scrubbing. Sparks, remember, that's electrical. That's neurological. That goes to brain and nerve, upper circulation. I'm going to hold off on the upper circulation because of what you just told me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hold off on that. But what would you pair instead with brain and nerve? Adrenal. Adrenal. Remember, it's your adrenals that produce neurotransmitters. You've got a nerve ending, but they don't touch. There's a gap, and that gap is called a synapse. Well, remember, just like an electrical current, you want that light to come on, that current's got to be strong enough to run that light. If this end is strong, but the receiver is weak, you're going to have a shortage. You're going to have a weak signal. Same, if the firing is weak, it's going to be weak because it's going to have a hard time making that jump, that leap. So you're going to go after brain and nerve and upper circ for that area. I would have, if this is you, I would have you doing castor oil packs, trying to get that soft. Remember, you've taken out some they've taken out some lymph nodes. So you have to, Robert and I had this conversation a couple weeks ago, can you regrow lymph nodes? I've never seen it, Robert's never seen it. But we have seen the body recreate lymph vessels, new ones. And so just keep going. See if your body can do that. The body's amazing in what it can do. We're not saying that new lymph nodes cannot regenerate or cannot be created, but we've not seen it happen. So.
And then what about standing on your head? Like, you know how you move your lymph going?
Does it make you feel better, dear? Remember, the brain is meant to drain. And you can stand on your head and work at circulation and all that stuff. I'd much rather lay on my bed and do an ear candle. That's just me. You can do the inversion if you want a little bit. That's going to help the back, that's going to help the spine, it's going to stretch some things. And remember, it's in that spinal fluid that you drain the brain. So there's different things that you can do, but just keep cleaning. Remember what I said the last question. Every day that you gain for yourself, you've given yourself more of a victory and more of a chance to get this area regenerated, cleaned, reconnected.
On the same team, when you remove the glandular system on the same team of breast cancer, when you remove the lymph nodes, at least in France, they refuse to shoot you or take the pressure of the arm where they remove the lymph node. I know in the US, the medical doctor does that. Can we take the pressure, blood pressure?
They do that. They do that because they're afraid of a blood vessel blowing or popping or scar tissue letting loose and that kind of thing. We honor that when people come in. If they say they've had breast cancer and lymph nodes removed, we honor that and we don't take that side. We rely on pictures. That's why you don't diagnose with the pictures, but yet the pictures can be worth 1,000 words, so to speak. Because I definitely honor that. If somebody comes in with the breast cancer and that kind of thing, I don't have them, because some of them feel very uncomfortable with that.
We have a friend and he has Lou Gehrig's, and he's completely paralyzed in bed, and he cannot move, he cannot speak, and he has a feeding tube, like nothing, like and he asked for a consultation and just wanted to see, you know, what I had to say. And but I don't feel like at that time I didn't even read his eyes, you know, but they are scared. He's scared that he is going to lose weight if he detoxes, and
he will.
Wife, yeah, but because the doctor said that he cannot lose weight, so they don't want to even to try to detox. So I was wondering, how is there a way to try to get them into the diet, maybe, and maybe the herbs, or it would be just a waste of time to do vegetables with them, or just to get them used to this new thing, or maybe it would start to suffer more. I don't know how to go with it. Yeah.
First of all, every person here that intends to work with somebody, you're going to come across those where your heart just breaks because you want it for them worse than what they want it for themselves.
Exactly, yeah.
Fear cannot rule. Fear, what is it? Fear is false evidence appearing real. You can't let fear rule, especially you as a counselor. You just have to know what you know, and do what you know what you're going to do.
Because he's saying, I know I'm not going to heal. Maybe I can just stabilize myself, improve.
So if that person were talking to me,
knows that he died,
I'd stop him right there. And I would say, if you do not know that you're going to heal, you're not going to heal. You have to fight for your life. I can lead you, I can guide you, I can give you recommendations, but you're the one that has to fight for your life. And have that serious talk with them. Have that serious talk with them.
Yeah, I wrote them a letter saying exactly that. Like, with my heart, I said, well, what do you have to lose? You know, you are like that. Like, just try. I would be fighting like every day of my life.
And I would, if they don't want to do the fruits right now and they're afraid of them, get them on raw, get them on vegetables, get them on juicing. Do whatever they will allow you to help them do. And after that, sweetheart, I have been literally sobbing in my office before because of somebody that didn't want to do something and I knew they could make it. And Robert had to come in and sit me down and say, this is not your fight. This is not your fight. You can love them, you can encourage them, but you cannot force them. What's that saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah.
So do what you did. You wrote a letter. Now sit back, ask for eyes and hearts to be opened, and if they choose to come back to you, run as fast as you can with them. but don't take that on you.
Pregnant women and atypical cells.
No, I'm not. Thank you.
Okay.
Atypical cells?
Yeah, in a pregnant, pretty far.
What was the question?
Pregnant women and atypical cells. The first thing their doctor is going to want them to do some type of a biopsy, some type of something to prove what these cells are. They may have them come back in 3 months and do the cells again, maybe in a pregnancy, not quite that long. This is a good time to talk about atypical cells just in anyone, because most of the time that leads to the conversation of biopsies. And I want to tell you a story. Almost 3 years ago, my father-in-law, we started noticing just little lapses in words that he would say. In his sentence, he would use that instead of this, or, you know, just different little things. And so he made an appointment for the doctor and decided to go in and have it checked out. Drove himself to the hospital. They were going to do a biopsy. Drove himself to the hospital. This is after they found out that he had a tumor. He drove himself to the hospital. He was still working at that point. He was still preaching at that point. I mean, very vibrant man. They went in. I think it was a 4-hour, 3-hour biopsy. Drilled a hole this big right here in the frontal lobe. He come out of that. He could not speak. He could not walk. He could not think what he wanted to say, even though he would try. He could not eat. It wasn't because of the tumor. It was because of the biopsy. We just had a woman who had a breast tumor. They went in and I'll finish that story in 1 second. Breast tumor. They did a biopsy, blew it up. I mean, it is big, it is huge, it is hard, and it is starting to protrude. When you have any kind of a tumor, why do you need to test if it's cancerous or not? Just do what needs to be done to get rid of it.
That's right.
You're ripping out tissue. Go on Google sometime a live biopsy and watch what happens. It's a little tiny needle, but they just go in there and they just start yanking out tissue. Once that happens, that's creating inflammation, that's creating scar tissue, that's creating obstructions. You just need to get it out anyway, because you know what? A benign tumor can always turn cancerous. So you just go in and get it, do what you need to do to get rid of it anyway. Don't worry about whether it is or whether it isn't. My sister has a tumor on her pituitary, and I have talked till I am blue in the face, and I finally think I've got her, remember, it's not my journey, but I think I've finally got her talked into just working on getting it taken care of and not doing the biopsy. I have worked 2.5 years. I brought my father-in-law and my mother-in-law down here. They were all raw fruit for 6 to 8 months. Started doing some cheating, but along the lines, this is how important it is for you to understand how strong herbs can be. He has been doing plenty of cheating, but last week he got a diagnosis. The oncologist said, we do not think there is any more cancer in the brain.
That's awesome.
That tumor had invaded over 2/3 of his brain.
Wow.
He is now talking, not like I'm talking, but he's talking. He is walking with a walker. We have spent 2.5 years trying to reconnect neurons and all of that from what they ripped out. But at least he got that. Now I have to talk them into not getting lax and to start strengthening it, because the doctor said this can come back. And my mother-in-law said, so are you telling me that all the natural and the way that we've been eating has helped? This oncologist would not put it on paper, but he said yes. said, keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
Come on.
What a victory.
So
you use like upper circ and brain and nerve?
I didn't for the first probably year. And then I
So
started
with the
to.
tumor, you wouldn't
Yeah.
use upper circ, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't use brain and nerve either?
Oh, I used brain and nerve. I never stopped using brain and nerve. I take them off maybe out of the whole 2.5 years. I've probably taken them off brain and nerve maybe a total of 4 weeks.
And there's 2 brain and nerve. So it was mentioned many times today, but never which one to use.
We are actually contemplating getting rid of one. I really hope we don't, because there are certain cases where I love using 1 and 2 together. It kind of has a calming effect on people and stuff. But not too many people go with 1. They always go with 2. 2 is an excellent formula. If I had to choose between the 2, I would go with 2 every time.
Why?
But I just the strength. The strength and the evidence of what you've seen of how it can help and stuff. But I have had people on 1 and 2 that have just had some amazing results with them paired together.
So for concussion, 2 would be better than 1?
Okay, so let's talk about brain trauma for a second. She asked a question on concussions, all right? You have kids that grow up playing football, they get head injuries, and basketball, they get knocked around, and sports, and all kinds of things, car accidents. There is a chemical that is in the brain. It's called glutamate. And the body produces it and needs to utilize it. But if there is a trauma, it's like a dam. It produces a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time. But if there is a concussion, any type of a head trauma, it's like that dam bursts for a second or 2. Or depending on the person's strength is how long it takes for that to reclose or refix itself. But in the meantime, all this glutamate is spilling out. And it's very sticky consistency, it's very corrosive. And it starts damaging the neurons around it. You look at people that have head traumas, and a big percentage of them down the road start having memory issues, start having things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, MS. I'm not saying that every MS, Parkinson's, ALS case has had a head trauma, but if you look at the head trauma down the road, a very high percentage of these cases happen. And it's because the body they don't have enough cleaning to go in there and get all that glutamate cleaned up. And it starts creating that corrosion on all those neurons. And down the road can lead to many different things. So with concussions and stuff, if you have a 5-year-old that comes home and got hit by a baseball bat, I'd have that kid on some cleansing to try and go after the brain area. If you're in a car accident and get at my father-in-law, 15 years before this brain tumor emerged, was in an accident where a ladder flew from the back and hit him in the back of the neck, broke his neck, and when he recovered, every time he ate, he cried. It crossed wires.
Oh my God.
But fast forward 15 years and what happens? Brain tumor. So trauma to the head is not something to take lightly. Get in there and clean it. So
Upper circ and upper nerve and brain is okay
for any trauma, upper brain and nerve and circ is an absolute must.
Upper circ, no, just brain and nerve.
For brain trauma, upper circ absolutely. Brain tumors, no.
That would be upper brain and nerve.
That would just be brain and nerve. Yeah. Yeah.
Marcie, what about cellulite?
Cellulite?
Yes. Yeah, good one.
Well, of course, this is connective tissue. So you're going to want to go back and look at parathyroid. You're also going to want to look at, again, going back to connective tissue, but fascia. Fascia tends to, when we start to get hardened and acidic and that kind of thing, fascia tends to start getting harder and harder. And it's woven kind of like this. And when you have loose connective tissue and you have it hardening, what happens underneath is you start pushing these fat fibers up through that. And that's where that dimpling effect, that look of cellulite happens. You need to A, alkalize, B, build up the parathyroid, and C, start working that fascia. Get a roller, start giving yourself a massage every night. Just run over that, loosen that fascia up.
How about dry skin brushing?
Alternating
hot and cold?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Myofascia release. Yeah, cupping. Cupping is good.
Something called a fascia blaster. I don't know if anyone.
Angie, you want to chime in on that?
What is it? I have one and it works.
Yeah. People are getting brain
First,
aneurysms and
yeah.
embolisms from that thing.
First of all, you've already got a parathyroid issue, and you start doing that, bruising starts happening, all that stuff. It's not very good for that. Same as with a parathyroid weakness, depending on how strong it is, you really need to be careful of some massages. We actually had someone that worked in the office, they found her dead 2 days after she had huge parathyroid issues. And they found her dead 2 days in her home, 2 days after she had had a deep tissue massage.
So what did that do?
Caused an aneurysm.
Because and she had parathyroid?
She had parathyroid weakness. So remember veins and stuff and all of that, that's your connective stuff too.
Marcie, have you ever heard of someone getting whiplash, but not from an accident, from acidosis?
A whiplash from acidosis.
Yeah, so your body, you're not whiplash from impact. Your spine, like scoliosis, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'll turn that way from acids, where your neck will pop out the other way and deform because of acids.
Okay, so let's trace this back. You have whiplash, but you were not in an accident. It is just the neck went out of place.
Yeah, not just the neck. There's spinal
The spine
issues
also?
as well. Several spine issues, but one of it.
So we just mentioned two things, muscle
Right.
and spine. Let's trace it back. Anybody? Parathyroid. Weakness in the parathyroid in a very acid condition.
Yeah.
You remember, your muscles can really be affected by acid, but your bones can too. It weakens their structure. So it's harder for them to hold. Your muscles hold things in place too, and the two things that are supposed to hold that in place for them are being affected by acids. So your skeletal structure is not strong, but even the muscles on each side of it that's supposed to be helping hold it in place are weak.
I tried to sort of explain what you just said to my chiropractor and my doctor, and they told me I was nuts. And I said I was not in an accident, but my x-ray is just unbelievable. The damage to my spine, it's years.
Just go back to them and say, but I'm a smart nut. Yes.
Can you touch on like babies and stuff? You know, I love Dr. Morse's YouTube videos, but he doesn't really. I know you talked with him on a couple of them, like, you know, couples trying to get pregnant, and then when they have a baby, like if the mother is, you know, eating junk food and how that directly affects the baby. How soon can you like puree the food to start?
Okay.
Or giving them juices and stuff like that.
So everybody here probably remembers the video, or if they've seen it, they'll remember it, where Robert and I were talking about nursing and mothers that were acidic and all that, and then the feedback that we got because we think that we should not nurse and all this stuff. Where's that moonshine, Yarrow? I created a Gmail account just to answer that dude. Okay, so this is the thing. First of all, I'm going to clear that up right away. I wanted to nurse my children so bad. There is nothing more beautiful than nursing children. I couldn't with my oldest, but maybe 2.5 months. My other one, obviously we lost. My third one, I was only able to nurse like 4 months. I just was not in a place to be able to go farther than that. that was a very deep emotional hurt for me. What we were trying to indicate on that is if you have a mother who has a child that is 9 months, a year old, 18 months. We have one that comes in, her child is 5 years old. And that child is getting colicky. That child is getting sick. That child is getting, this, that. It might be time to pull that child off the breast and start giving him solid foods. We were not talking about newborns and that kind of thing. I believe that if every mother can nurse for at least, they say that the child has gained all of the antibodies that they need within, I think it's 6 months. So if you can go at least 6 months, great. If you can't, don't worry. That child, if you do it right, can still grow up healthy and strong. So what I have mothers do, if they're at, let's just say we've had them 8 weeks. We have the mother start doing coconut milk with some superfoods. You want to be very careful on which superfoods. We have the one for infants that we still have a bunch of, but we're reformulating that one.
That's on the 3, right?
That's not the 3. The 3 is for toddlers and older people. It's not labeled yet. If a mother calls in that condition, we have so few that call in at that young that we still will give them some trial to try.
The
If
other ones wouldn't be okay to give to a baby,
I would really, if you're gonna do it, I would dilute the formula. I mean, like just put a tiny bit in at a time. Remember, there's great stuff in there, but I would lean towards more of the fruit superfoods rather than the vegetable superfoods. Yeah. If the baby is 3 months old, start pureeing. You're not going to hurt that child. I had all of my boys were on pureed fruits from 2.5 months on because of the breast milk issue that I had. We've had babies that mothers brought them up on nothing but fruits after the breast milk, and they are smart as a whip and strong. My 1-year-old granddaughter, they were nursing her, but they also were starting to give her nothing but fruits. And okay, she's my granddaughter, smart as a whip. Just teasing. I mean, it's just unreal. And is this little girl skinny? Is she malnourished? Absolutely not. Don't be afraid. I don't care whether you're a creationist, whether you're an evolutionist, we can all agree on one thing. There was a beginning. And in that beginning, we plucked the fruit off the trees, we picked the berries off the bushes. Eventually, Adam and Eve were fighting and they tripped over this leaf and they pulled it and wondered what this orange thing was, which ended the discussion, and they discovered carrots. Oh, sorry. I'm just saying there is a progression. Have we evolved in this world? Absolutely we have. But we started on fruits and berries. Would you create something and then self-destruct it? Absolutely not. Would you buy a car and give it the wrong oil purposely? Absolutely not. God didn't create us to put us on berries and fruits if it's bad for us. So babies, I mean, I don't know if I answered your question or not, but from the age of 3 months old, they can tolerate pureed food.
I'm just curious about that because the mothers, they like, the fat foods or fried foods,
Yeah.
or even when they're pregnant, and so they're really acidic, and then they want to start breastfeeding, and you try to tell them that it's you're directly influencing your baby, so when they're they have sinus problems at such a young age or colicky, stuff like that, it's a lot of the times you got to explain it to the mother, like, hey, what you're eating is directly
Right.
affecting
Everything that you put in your mouth or your child's mouth is developing their cells for tomorrow. So, and some people may look at me cross-eyed with this one, but if your baby has stomach issues, kiwi, pineapple, pears, and yes, sweet potatoes are excellent for the digestive system. So, I'm not saying give them sweet potatoes every single day, but some every so often. Remember, the sweet potato may slow down, but that's if you're detoxing. Most people are not detoxing a 3-month-old. So.
I'd like to add something and ask a question.
Yes.
I work a lot with.
We're gonna need you to talk a lot louder.
I work a lot with pregnant women
Uh-huh.
and breastfeeding women. I think that's, in my opinion, if I could choose work to do, it would be with pregnant women and breastfeeding because they're the source. They're where everything starts. So what I find that works really well is just like you mentioned, coconut milk.
Yep.
And also because we know that mother's milk is more sugar, I always have that blend of dates.
Dates?
Yeah, dates, acai berry, sea moss, and all that stuff. Moringa powder, all that.
Moringa powder, dates, sea moss,
And that's for what?
babies.
Formula.
Formula. And your question?
And the question is, we know that the baby is attached to the mother's lymphatic system.
Yep.
So does that mean that, for example, if the mother has a parasite overgrowth or candida overgrowth, is it going to pass down to the baby? And can you use, after birth, can you use anti-parasitic herbs? I already know that we can't use parasitic herbs on the mother.
Right.
Who's pregnant. So can you use it on the baby after birth?
The question was using the mother, and the child is attached to the mother's lymphatic system, and can candida and parasites and stuff be passed along in that regard, and can you use a parasite formula on a baby? To answer the first question, we all know that the baby is attached to the mother's lymphatic system. So can that be passed along? Yes, each one of those can, especially the candida with thrush. You see a lot of babies getting thrush and stuff. I like to take a little bit of the Parasite M and mix it with just a little bit of like a date or something sweet so that the baby latches onto that, and coat the mother's nipple in that so that as she's feeding the baby, don't do the thrush medicine. Try and get that Parasite M in there or something like that. Very light coating. Have very good success with that.
And with what?
Parasite M was just something sweeter, like maybe a mashed up banana, or not a lot, but just enough to coat the nipple so that the baby will latch on. If you're trying to put Parasite M on the nipple and the baby latch on, it's not going to work. You could do a glycerin. You could definitely do a glycerin with that. The next part about the, what was the next part?
Can you use the...
Oh yeah, parasite formulas. I would really caution on using parasite formulas on babies until they're at least a year old. At least a year old. Remember, there's a lot of people who don't like to think about this, but there are some parasites that we need. And a parasite cleanse landed me in the hospital at Christmas time. And you just want to be careful what you're stirring up. Die-off of parasites are very toxic to the body. And you just don't want to put a baby through that right then. When they get a little older, I mean, it's not like you're going to pass a tapeworm through the nipple. It may be a smaller parasite or that kind of thing, but you can wait a little while before you do that. If they are nursing, I'm very cautious of the mother even doing parasite cleanses at that point. Yes. Uh-huh.
When would you use hypothalamus glandular?
When would you use hypothalamus glandular?
You know my girls, my two girls, and they were on the herbal formulas for over a year, and we weren't getting a lot of results and all. So then we did start the glandulars, and they really...
You did both hypothalamus
we didn't
and...
do hypothalamus.
Okay.
I'm just asking about that because
Okay.
you did pick that out when you spoke to them.
Right. I know it doesn't show up in the chart. Robert has had me working on a new chart with the breast on it and different areas, the hypothalamus, the a couple of the other areas that aren't showing up on there. If you look at the chart Where animation life comes down and that point, it would be where it would normally be a point. Right beside the pituitary is the hypothalamus. And when that area is congested or there's a lacuna there or a radii solaris that goes right up straight through that, I would. Anybody that is struggling with dark emotions, that struggles with finding true joy, anybody that struggles with, remember the hypothalamus and the pituitary work hand in hand. So anybody who struggles with some of those areas, if you're not getting it through the pituitary or some of this, and it's just not, I would try a bottle. Definitely. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
What about the diabetes? Diabetes, how do you treat the type 1 and type 2?
Type 2 diabetics, you're looking at the majority of that being a sugar metabolism issue. So I work with adrenal and liver.
Sorry, adrenal and?
Adrenal and liver. In type 1, this is not just a pancreas issue. This is pancreas, this is kidney, this is adrenal, this is liver, this is pituitary. So you've got multiple things you're going after. And I would definitely start out with adrenal, pituitary, and liver for a good 4 to 6 months. Because when your adrenal produces cortisol, the liver produces sugar. And so I work with both of them because 9 times out of 10 will have a weakness in both.
Would you put them on fruits?
Oh, absolutely.
From the start?
Yep. And you have to be very careful because they're on insulin and they tend to drop quicker. Yeah. And then if you're not careful, you can get this rebound effect. Oh, my sugar's low. I eat. My sugar bounces sky high. Oh, now I got to take a bunch of insulin. I take a bunch of insulin, I drop way low again. And you start getting that rebound effect. Remember, your fruits are utilized as insulin or as energy right away. So if you start seeing that sugar drop on a type 1 diabetic, hold.
Like good 30 minutes or so.
Yep, don't give that shot right away. Because remember, when you're detoxing, you're flushing things out. And that includes stored sugars within the liver, the muscles, and the fat cells.
And how long does it take to sort of stabilize the...
Oh goodness, I've had people that stabilized within 2 weeks, and then I've had others that have taken 3 months to stabilize. For me, myself personally, being a type 1 diabetic, it took me, before I come off that sugar loading, it took me about 6 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks.
Have you had type 1s come off of their insulin?
Mm-hmm.
You have?
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep. They were, 1 and 2 and 5 years. Yeah. They weren't 30 and 40. But yes, I have. Absolutely. And I've had those that have had it longer come way down. I mean, I went from 95 units on average, 75 plus coverage a day, down to 17. But then the whole episode at Christmas time took me back up to 40, and now I'm working my way back down again. So
you're saying to wait for the...
Oh, okay. We can go a little longer. Yeah.
You're saying to wait for the insulin, to give insulin, and then eat again?
So, no. Check your blood like you would normally do before. So I'm checking my blood, and my blood is 135. All right? I eat my fruit meal. About an hour later, I check it again, 320. Normally, a type 1 diabetic is on a sliding scale, meaning every 50 units they add so much, or every 50 points they add so much. So if they're taking insulin for 300, they're going to drop. Because that is not only flushing sugar, but it's used, the fruit that they just ate isn't what took their sugar way high, because that's used as pure energy. It is what their body has been flushing out of its system. And so wait another hour and see how far your body naturally will come down. So you go from 300 and then an hour later you're at 150, I wouldn't do anything. But if you only came down to 250, I would take enough to cover that 250, not the higher number.
Would
Kombucha creating fungus in the body. Absolutely. Fungus loves fermented food. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get benefits. Remember, who is it that does cottage cheese and flax, Budwig? You can get results, but what is she using? She's using cottage cheese, which is mucus forming, and she's using flax, which is a fat. Both of those are buffering acids. So she's getting some results, but in the long run, she's creating more mucus, which cancer feeds on, and that buffering didn't heal the problem. It didn't get to the root of the issue. It only buffered it. That's like me having a nail in my tire and stopping at every gas station along the road and filling up that tire rather than just changing the tire. So.
I have a question about the glandulars.
Yes. Question about the glandulars.
Well, because the glandulars and the herbs in general. So, people, I feel, my clients or my family want to do, it's easier for them to latch on to the glandulars and the herbs and not change the diet as much. So, and for me as well, you know, I have been on the adrenal glandular very high and I'm not doing 100% raw. So I'm trying to think about, like, do you say to your client, look, I don't want to keep giving you all these glandulars, right? Because I give you the parathyroid one, I can go to the hypothalamus, oh, pituitary's not working, let's do this. But you're not doing 100% raw fruit yet. So do you say to them, no, you have to do 100% raw fruit?
Well, I will tell you, in our office, they don't get a glandular without me signing off on it.
Right.
So if I feel that they are using it as a crutch, I'll stop writing their glandular on their protocol and recommend some other things for them to try for a while.
Why is that?
I get people very mad at me when I do that, but it's for their own good. Remember, a glandular is still animal tissue. It's just a small enough amount that we are using it to do in a short period of time to just kind of, let's get working just a little bit. And it starts sparking, you know, kind of like an engine trying to starts sparking for a little bit. And then maybe when we kick in the tinctures, it catches on. That's why I always glandular, herbal. Not strong enough, glandular, herbal. But I don't ever really want them to get so caught up in the glandulars and so reliant. Trust me, I have clients that are. And we have those conversations.
Because the fruit is the power.
The fruit and okay, so let's say that this whole roof got rain damage on it. I can't just come in and put new paint on that. I can't even come in and cover it with new drywall. I need to gut the old. So when you're looking at it, your fruits are what's taking out the damage, getting rid of it, fighting it, flushing it out, moving it up, stirring it up, moving it along. Rebuilding that is your herbs. Then you put the coat of paint on. That's when you start adding your vegetables and that kind of thing. Your herbs rebuild. I can eat, if I have cirrhosis of the liver, I can eat all the apples that Adam and Eve would have loved. That's not going to rebuild my liver. But I add milk thistle. Apples are excellent for the liver because of the malic acid, but they're not going to rebuild or regenerate that liver unless you add the milk thistle, the dandelion, some of that other stuff. Your herbs are very important. I cleared up a whole bunch of stuff still being on a very wide diet because I didn't jump in the pool. I was one of those where I dipped my toe in and then I dipped half the foot and finally ended up jumping in. So.
Is it the same for the bone and connective tissue? Would you treat it the same?
Absolutely. Like I said today, I'll put them on 2 months of a parathyroid, 2-3 times a day, then a month of 1-3 times a day paired with the bones and connective, and then the next month I'll take them off the glandular and do just the bones and connective and see where we're at. That's about 4 months of kind of back and forth a little bit, you're going to see some people, oh, my varicose veins started fading, you know, my back has stopped hurting as much, you know, this has gotten better, that's gotten better, I'm not near as depressed. And then you put them on just the bones, and what do they come back? Varicose veins are starting to show up again. I can't believe how depressed I've been this last week. That just tells me that I switched them too quickly to just the bones and connective.
Right.
So I'll go back and do another month of both, and we'll try it again. And we just go back and forth that way until we get them a result that keeps not only getting better, but fixes itself. So, yes.
On what you just said about using the herbs to rebuild, a person that has limited funds to do the protocols, could they use, you know, if they're doing all fruit, could they use that super blend food on the up?
Absolutely. I have clients all the time who have absolutely no money, and we walk through herbs that they can grow themselves to help. I put somebody on, if that's the case, put them on the superfood and see if they can find horsetail. Horsetail is amazing for that, and building stronger bones and hair and nails and teeth and that kind of thing.
For a short time. If we have questions like this, can we put them in Facebook and get somebody to answer those questions? Or?
We don't really have anybody at the office that monitors that kind of thing. Even when you do the videos, all those questions that you see down below and stuff, there's times we would love to respond to them, but we just don't have, because we get over 200 and some calls a day, and we have 3 girls manning that kind of thing. You can put it out on Facebook, and somebody here may be able to answer you. I do have, all 3 of us have practitioners that will schedule an hour, and in that hour we'll sit down and go over 6 or 8 cases and go over those.
Okay, that will help us a lot.
Yeah.
We start working with people, and then we get stuck, or we just need help.
Yeah, and I'm really trying to, Robert talked about it a little bit this weekend, I'm trying to talk him into doing a practitioner like 3-day where you guys bring your cases and we sit around tables and we go over your stuff. So eye photos, health questionnaires, protocols, whatever. Questions?
On the moonshine yellow, what is that for again? And is it something that's just a single herb, or is it a combination?
It's from the brandy flower.
Moonshine.
It's just calming. It's just very calming. It's just, it helps with nerves and settle them down, anxiety, that kind. It's an absolutely phenomenal herb plant. It does not, it's just a relaxant. It doesn't rebuild. There you have to go. I pair that up with adrenal every single time.
That's just more of an emotional
Yep.
type of thing, right?
Yep,
I just want to
exactly.
say something about the woman that runs that Running Fox Farm. She is a sweetheart. If you call and you need to talk to her on the phone, I was one evening when my son was feeling desperate and I was trying to figure out what to order from her, and she was wonderful, and the order was there quick, and it was wonderful. So
Yep.
she's
Where is
all.
that from? And the name of the company is?
Was it Running Fox Farm?
Yeah, Running Fox.
Yeah, it's in the back of Robert's book under recommendations.
Oh, okay.
So it's in there, but she's a doll.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we get your list of additional herbs? That was in class, something in class today that maybe we could.
It's just an accumulation. I have probably 15 herb books, and I have a notepad at the side, and anytime I see an herb that works for benefiting the brain or like ALS or anything like that, I'll make a note for myself and then reference that. It's nothing that is really together or anything. Just really start studying though, really start studying the herbs, because there's some amazing herbs that aren't in any of our formulas that I utilize. So,
Trying to grow as many as I can.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
What are
I
the
have.
programs that you recommend, like certification or herbal certification programs?
Um, What are some certification classes that are recommended? I really recommend a good herb certification because it's just amazing what some of the herbs, and like I said, we don't have all the herbs that we like in all of our formulas. You just can't, you can't put 20, 30 herbs in a formula because then you're looking at 2 and 3% of this and 5% of this. And some of them we like having stronger percentages in there. I'm going to be honest, I really recommend a chemistry class because what are we dealing with? Chemistry. Iridology. I know you came to our class, but just keep studying it. I don't know that you need a certification outside of ours. Keep studying it because ours teaches, I know Robert goes really, really fast, and we're working on remember this is our second year of doing this, and we are always learning what to do next, what to change this with, what to put here, how you guys like it. Fill out those surveys. Even if you didn't get a chance to do them today, do them. Put as much of the negative in there as you want. I'm not saying you're trying to be negative, but tell us what you would like to see or what you didn't see out of this program that you would like to see, because we want it to be what you want it to need, what you need it to be. And we want to go off of those. We know we're not where we need to be yet with going through some of this stuff, but we're doing and getting the information out there as fast as we can. And we just had so many people begging for one of our classes that we just started doing it, and we're learning as we go kind of as well.
Is there any other iridology school that you would recommend or courses to take?
I'm sure that there's those out there. I haven't really come across any. When I went to class to learn iridology, they were telling the students to ask me. So that was kind of a defeated purpose for me of being there. I had fun with it, but because I got to explain our way of thinking. I still remember going on stage and he was muscle testing me, and I said, "Can you muscle test my parathyroid?" And he goes, "It's inconsequential, you don't need it muscle tested." Just know that any school you go to, you are going to be up against some things that they represent that you may not agree with. And you're going to have to, I started feeling myself getting pulled to different ways of thinking and this, that, and the other thing, and then I'd get away from that and get back to my room to study, and I'd be like, whoa, 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 whoa. That is just, it's not logical, it doesn't make sense. All week long, they were pointing out, but what about, tick bites, Lyme's disease? What about lupus? What about this? And I just kept wanting to stand up and say, ask deeper. Why is lupus allowed to be there? Why are Lyme's allowed to be there? Why are parasites allowed to be there? It's because of the environment.
Yeah.
Fix the environment and you can fix anything. So, I have time for one more. Yes.
Let's get back to God and faith.
Okay.
I have a lot of faith that I'll grow my blonde hair back.
You come to me next week and we'll work on that.
Right. But is there a glandular or an herb that you would give somebody that doesn't have faith in the program, or not as much as you would hope that they would have for them to succeed? Like, would you put them on adrenal or something to like kickstart them to have a positive mental outlook on
I would work on brain and nerve, upper circulation, get the kidneys filtering, because what can clog this can clog this.
Okay.
It can cause there to be obstructions. Just like you can have an obstruction to the kidney, you can have an obstruction here. It can be how you were brought up. It can be that your father beat you with the Bible. You know, it can be anything, but it can be an obstruction. You have to overcome that, but to overcome that, you have to have some of this stuff where it's a vicious cycle. You know, you can get depressed. They put you on depression medicine. The depression medicine affects the chemicals of the brain, which cause you to get more depressed, and you just get in this vicious cycle. It takes more chemicals down, the more medicine you take causes more side effects, and it's that vicious cycle. I call it soul scars. Those soul scars, just like I got this scar on my knee. This happened like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. Scar's still there. You have to deal with those soul scars. And those soul scars, it can be a girlfriend that left you. It can be how mom and dad fought between themselves. It can be a lot of things. It can even be from grandma, grandpa, great-grandma, grandpa, that kind of thing. Those soul scars are tied to the right side of the heart, and that right side of the heart is connected to the frontal lobe, the top, and the cerebellum back here. And it causes, I know this is a Christian term, it causes hardening of the heart. And when you harden the heart, it can affect relationships, it can affect faith, it can affect all kinds of things. Whether I'm willing to forgive, whether I'm hanging on to that anger. It is a scar. A scar, like on my ankle down here when I was demolition derby, tearing my car apart, getting ready for that redneck, game they like to play. And I jumped off, my wedding ring, or my ring, yeah, it was my wedding ring, got caught on a nail or a screw that I hadn't taken out yet. I overcorrected and snapped my ankle. Wrapped it really quick, hid it from my husband, because I knew he'd tell me I couldn't drive in the derby, and I drove anyway. But I had to walk for 3 days until that demolition derby, and I did some damage there. Built up a lot of scar tissue. That is fibrous, that is calcium, that is hard. Calcium hardens. And when you have a soul scar, it hardens the heart. And even scientifically, with the calcium that is there, it can harden that heart a little bit. And you've got to be able to break that down. And getting the body more alkaline and getting the organs functioning properly helps with that, because it allows the body to create homeostasis. It allows a more calming, peaceful, and sometimes logical way of thinking. So, anyway, thank you guys. From the bottom of my heart, I want you guys to know that the clinic, that you guys mean the world. You are world changers. You are what is making a difference in other people's lives. And even if you doubt yourself a little bit, don't doubt this. You are in the forerunning knowledge of how the body works and how you can actually affect people's lives and get them from a state of pain and hurting and sickness to being healthier. So do not doubt yourself. There's always going to be times when you doubt the process, but there will be soon followed by a case that you win that you didn't know if you were going to win. There will always be a case of hope following that. So just keep believing in yourself and believing in the body and believing in the process and believing in the gifts that God has given us, herbs, food, to get us where we need to go. And thank you so much for having me here and allowing me to talk.
Awesome.